Welcome, everyone, to our Earth Day keynote event, Love to Exposure to Action, Mobilizing Advocates for Our Earth with award-winning author Audrey Peterman. Happy Earth Day! We're so glad you're celebrating with us tonight. Before we get started, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Though we'll save questions for the end, you can type your questions at any time in the chat box. We'll be monitoring it and we'll save those questions to ask during the Q&A. If you're joining us via Facebook Live, you can add your questions as comments on the live video. If you haven't already, you can test out the chat by commenting where you're tuning in from. We're so excited to have so many people from around Florida and beyond join us tonight. If you're joining us via Zoom, you can enable closed captions on this event by clicking the button that says Live Transcript at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom window. My name is Sadie Mills, and I'm a program coordinator with the University of Florida Thompson Earth Systems Institute, a part of the Florida Museum. I also want to acknowledge and thank and express our gratitude for our event co-sponsors, the Florida Museum of Natural History Exhibits and Public Programs, the University of Florida Office of Sustainability, and Conservation Florida. We're especially thankful to be joined tonight by Conservation Florida fellow Lillian Dinkins, who will be moderating our Q&A. Tonight, we're gathered on the 51st anniversary of the first Earth Day to celebrate and learn about the wonders of our national parks and other public lands. If you're joining us this evening from Gainesville, you are on the land of many nations, including the Timucua. If you're joining us from outside of Gainesville, you can learn more about the land you're on by visiting the link that's going to be dropped in the chat. We invite you to continue celebrating our Earth next week with a free virtual event about biodiversity in Florida Springs. We'll be joined by a panel of filmmakers and scientists to discuss 2 films about Florida Springs and the creatures that call them home. Learn more from the link in the chat, and we look forward to having you join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker for tonight. Audrey Peterman has written several books, including From My Jamaican Gully to the World, which documents her personal journey to environmental advocacy, Our True Nature, Finding a Zest for Life in the National Park System, a travel guide to the National Park System, and Legacy on the Land, a Black couple discovers our national inheritance and tells why everyone should care, which she co-authored with her husband, Frank. Her achievements have been recognized with awards, including the Environmental Hero Award, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Outstanding Citizen Advocate Award, and the Lifetime Achievement Award from Outdoor Afro. Thanks to her efforts as part of the Next 100 Coalition, President Obama issued a presidential memorandum in 2017 promoting diversity and inclusion in our national parks, forests, and other public lands and waters. We are so grateful that Audrey is able to join us virtually tonight from her home in Jamaica and are excited to learn more about how we can care for our Earth. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Audrey.
Thank you so much, Sadie. I am so appreciative, overjoyed, and grateful to be joining you today. I am so thankful for the museum and the fact that your mission statement is that you seek to inspire people to value the biological richness and cultural heritage of our diverse world. So well put. And we are so mission aligned because for the past 25 years, my husband and conservation partner, Frank, and I have been striving to inspire all Americans, but particularly overlooked populations of Americans of color, to engage in conservation and as an entry point to engage with the public land system, to know what we have to conserve and to treasure. And so I'm so grateful to be with you on this 51st Earth Day. And today I can say I am literally jumping for joy because I heard the words that I have been waiting for 25 years to hear. And it wasn't even the words from President Obama and the administration speaking about their plan, their drive, their goal to reduce emissions in America by between 50 and 52% from 2005 levels. I mean, that was very exciting. And it was very exciting to know that we're with, 40 other nations at the climate table, including most particularly China and Russia. But it wasn't even that got me so excited. What got me so excited was to hear it put into perspective by Bill Weir, who is an environmental reporter on CNN. And what he said was that the extent of what President Biden is proposing to do is comparable to how we mobilized to end and win World War II, and how President Kennedy decided in the space race to put an American on the moon in a decade. Those were the words that I had been waiting 25 years to hear, because I could not for the life of me understand how I was learning so much about the existential crisis that humanity was facing. And at the same time, I could talk to 100 people on the street, and maybe one or two of them would know or be engaged in the effort to combat climate change. So I was, how is that possible? But Bill Weir's words tonight, this afternoon, put into context for me both the extent, makes it understandable and manageable and digestible what we have in store. It's going to be radical, revolutionary, and incredible change, but it is what we most need. And I don't even think of that change as, things that we're going to have to sacrifice. I think of it as investment that we're going to make in our country and in our earth. Today, I actually think of the instigators of the first Earth Day. I think of Gaylord Nelson. I think of the UAW president, Walter Reuther. I think of the author, Rachel Carson. I think of how they must be turning over in their graves today with joy that we're finally approaching the substantial, the kind of radical change that is going to be needed to protect us from the ravages of climate change in the very near future. So I'm excited that the theme of Earth Day this year is Restore Our Earth. And one thing that I've wondered about for the 25 years that I've been involved is half of the population is not visible in conservation. And unfortunately, that half has tended to be people of color, Americans of color, people of African, Asian, Native people, people of Hispanic descent. Where have we been seen? We have not been seen at the forefront of this movement, although I hasten to say that we have been working diligently to make a contribution and also to interface with the mainstream environmental sector to say, look, if this is going to get done, it has got to be all of us doing it together. So I'm really, really thrilled that the Biden-Harris administration has this grasp that in climate, they're proposing to put 40% of their climate expenditure into environmental justice, because certainly the pandemic that we have been experiencing has revealed to us the gross disparities that is experienced by American citizens. And we have to say, we cannot, as a nation that prides itself in equality and justice, we just cannot put up with that anymore. I say now that the pandemic put a mask on the face of individual Americans, but it actually took the mask off of the face of America. And today I feel really encouraged that we're going to go even further by redressing the atrocious inequality that has stalked us for so many hundreds of years. I really am hopeful that we come out of this pandemic with a new view of life, a new commonality of purpose that we, the American people, share in dealing with the existential crisis of our time. Now, as Sadie said, my forte has been the public land system. I am a fan, I am an advocate. It is my delight and my joy. It actually is the fact that I have been to so many places, 185 units of the National Park System, I hasten to say. It is actually the memory of being in those places that has kept me sane in this period when we have been quarantined and unable to see members of our family and friends and, to act in the ways that we normally do. But in my presentation, I titled it from awareness. What did I title it? Anyway, it has to do with exposure and falling in love and then taking action. And so I'm going to tell you through my story how my exposure to the public land system and made me fall in love with the world and fall in love with myself as a creature of the world and fall in love with everybody else in the world and develop a passion to share this feeling of belonging, this feeling of freedom, this feeling of love with everyone. And then I want to share with you some measures that I have found useful in getting other people on board with the conservation program. So if you would, Sadie, if you would share for me the first slide on the Milky Way galaxy, because I like to start there. I like to start talking about the Earth and conservation with this establishing shot. It's a view of the Milky Way galaxy taken at an astronomy festival in the Badlands National Park that I was at in 2012 with the astronaut Story Musgrave, the astronaut who went into outer space and helped perform, he actually performed eye surgery on the Hubble telescope and aligned the lenses so that the Hubble has been able to send us back all these magnificent pictures from deep space. But I show that picture to say to people, look, we're all in a far corner of the Milky Way galaxy. Yes? Next slide, please. The sun, in this small solar system where Earth finds itself, shines equally on all. And none of us knows how we got here. None of us knows how or when we're gonna leave. So we're all equally vulnerable to some degree. Therefore, all the things that we human beings on planet Earth, next slide please, all the things that we have concocted about our differences by virtue of our skin color, by virtue of our culture, by virtue of all of these things that we try to divide ourselves up into are so irrelevant. And now that we are at this place, we're on the brink of disaster, it strikes me that it's very important for us to understand that just as we made up those differences, they no longer serve us and we need to discard them. For the benefit of the earth and for the benefit of human civilization and population on earth, we need to discard them. I had the luxury of being at the Kennedy Space Center on Cape Canaveral in Florida a few years ago, 2003, as I recall. And I had the luxury of sitting at dinner between the astronauts, Wally Schirra and John Laval. And I was in abject astonishment. And both of those gentlemen, when they got up to speak, they emphasized that there's a certain part when you're in orbit where you can put up your thumb to a window of the space vehicle, and you can obscure the entire planet Earth behind it. Think about that. A thumb can obscure, let planet Earth vanish in the vastness of space. That's how small and ephemeral and tough and wonderful we are. And it strikes me that we human beings at this point in time in 2021 need to recognize that it is not so much the earth that we're putting in danger, because the earth can accommodate itself, the earth can bend, but it will not let us break it. So the earth has put up with our pollution for all of these many years, but it will not do so indefinitely. And so it strikes me that this is a time to recognize that it is not so much the earth that we're trying to save. We are trying to save a quality of the environment that can continue to protect human life. Next slide, please. And I'm happy to say to you that I believe that the gateway to having more Americans really gung ho about saving our environment is to show them the vast acreage of the most beautiful places on earth that are in our country, that are in our protected land system, that they don't yet know about. I believe that when people see these places with their own eyes, or even shown pictures of them, and know that these places are out there for them, that they remain as close to the original nature as how the earth has developed itself over countless, billions of years. They will understand that what we're going to be asking them to do, the investment that we're going to be asking them to make in conservation, the lifestyle changes that they're going to be required to make are worth it, because there are places such as these in our country, and we can strive to return the quality of the air, the quality of the water, the quality of the environment, at least to a value approaching these places. So this is Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah, and it's one of my favorite places. I have to tell you, the reason that I have the Grand Canyon as my backdrop this evening is because I am so proud of this natural wonder of the world, that whether you see it once or 10 times, as I have, I'm so proud to say that, it still gives you the same feeling. I come away from the Grand Canyon with the feeling of transcendence, that I am so infinitesimal, and yet I am part of everything, and everything else is part of the one. So this is one of my favorite, all-time favorite national parks. And it is also many of our iconic national parks. There are, I believe, 63 national parks in the national park system, which consist of more than 423 units, including historic sites, national battlefields, seashores, etc. But many of these iconic national parks are also part of the World Heritage System. They're World Heritage Sites, which means that they are relevant to the entire family of man. How blessed are we when we know that we are in proximity to such beauty? And certainly the COVID pandemic has shown us how much we need nature and how much we need the great outdoors. There couldn't be a better time for us to be embracing almost a war footing to combat climate change and to protect our environment, because this is a time when many Americans who have been cooped up for more than a year are looking for respite. They're looking for places to explore. They're looking for places to go to. They're looking for open air, the open road, etc. And so this is a time when all conservation groups and people who are conservation minded can help to steer our fellow citizens and make them aware that these places are out there for them to enjoy. And I can speak from experience that the great majority of people in communities of color do not know about these places. I can speak from experience because in 1995, Frank and I drove from the Atlantic coast in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, all the way to the Pacific coast and Washington State. We went to places that included Bryce Canyon, the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Yosemite, the whole rainforest. Who even knew that there was a rainforest in America? I didn't know that. But when I came back from that, I felt so enriching that I devoted the rest of my life and all of my activities to bring that information to people in communities such as mine who did not know. And one of the key things that we found in doing that was it wasn't just that we needed to tell Americans of color about the treasures in the public land system. It was also that we needed to make um, white Americans in the conservation sector, aware that contrary to what they believe and have said repeatedly, Americans of color are very interested in helping protect the environment, very interested in exploration, very interested in being outdoors. Yes, there is a natural trepidation to go into places where you have not been before and where you may not feel welcome. But the point of having the national park system, which protects the natural, cultural, and historical, no, and historical legacy of America for the benefit of this and future generations. That's why we have the national park system and the entire public land system that is that are maintained with our tax dollars. So getting people of color to know about these places over the past 25 years, we have found that that has been the greatest entree. And now I can assure you that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of groups of color around the country that are avidly engaged in sharing the resources and the benefits of the public land system with their communities. And that's a good thing. The next thing is how we partner up with them. Next slide, please. Yes. Oh, so I'm proud of this. This is our grandson. We took our grandchildren on a tour of Bryce, Grand Canyon, and Zion, and I think around 2007. And the young man you see there, the 4-year-old Taffer Peterman, has just been recruited for a major, as a quarterback for a college, a major college, Prairie View, I think he's thinking of going to. But we wanted our grandchildren to see these places. And when we asked them what stood out on the trip for them, they range from age 16 to age 4. Some of them said it was the opportunity to be together as a family, the parents and grandparents, the children. And that's one of course, of the key reasons that people go to parks. They don't necessarily go, to make a political statement. They go to be with family and to enjoy themselves. But it was so important to us that they said that, they were happy that we were together as a family. And one of our grandchildren said he was just happy to know that these places were out there, and thankfully now he's very engaged in the conservation sector. And one of the 16-year-old actually took his fiance to the Grand Canyon to propose to her a couple of years ago. Next slide, please. Yes. Okay, so this is Zion National Park, and Frank and the grandchildren were at the campfire making dinner. That's one of the things that they love so much too, just being able to do everything together. Next slide, please. Yellowstone. Wow, how can I describe it? Before I went to Yellowstone, I thought that Old Faithful was the only geyser in the park because, of course, Old Faithful is what you hear about all the time. How was I to know that Old Faithful is actually one of a gazillion geysers in the park? Because Yellowstone actually contains half of all the geysers on Earth. Can you imagine that? How do you think an American who's never seen anything other than within city limits will feel to go out there and see that and be able to think about the fact that, in this place, the consistency of the earth is about the thickness of a potato chip, and yet some of the largest mammals on earth have roamed there freely for millennia. The opportunity to see and to experience the vastness and to contemplate life, to me, is just the greatest benefit of being in the public lands domain. And it's a feeling that I just want every American to have so that they know what there is to love and to conserve. Next one, please. Yes, I couldn't resist putting in that picture of me and Frank at the General Sherman tree, the largest tree on earth, the giant sequoia tree in Sequoia National Park. And incidentally, in traveling through the national parks, we found out that the entire history, as I said, the national park system protects the natural, cultural, and historical legacy of America. But how were we to know that so much of the history of Black people and Asian people and Hispanic people is contained in the national park system? I don't even need to say the indigenous people because, of course, they were on the land for untold years before Europeans even got here. But in Sequoia National Park, we had the privilege of learning how the Buffalo Soldiers, led by Captain Charles Young in 1903, rode from the Presidio. I think they rode 17 days from the Presidio of San Francisco up to Sequoia National Park, where they were sent to protect the giant sequoias from ranchers who wanted to graze their cattle among them, and also from lumbermen who saw these giant 2,000-year-old magnificent trees as only so much, board feet of lumber. So that was a piece of history that we learned. And we also learned that they were in protected Yosemite National Park in 1905, because before the National Park Service was set up as a government agency in 1916, the parks were protected by the Army. So the Buffalo Soldiers had a tremendous role in protecting the earliest parks. Next one, please. Yes, and that's a look at the giant sequoias and a bit of mention about Colonel Charles Young, whose home in Ohio is now a part of the National Park System, and a monument to Colonel Charles Young and the Buffalo Soldiers. That monument was created by President Obama. Next slide, please. Aha. So coming closer to home to you in Gainesville, it struck me that you have a lot of public lands in the area that you can expose people to, people who might not have the opportunity at this point to go into the Grand Canyon or Yellowstone or Yosemite or any of those iconic places. But you do have the Ocala National Forest in your backyard, I believe. And that forest posits itself as a place where you can recreate 365 days a year. Now, I'm not certain how much of the recreation benefits are enjoyed by people of color, but I do think that that is a place that you can start to share with the people that you want to get your conservation message to. And a wonderful thing about this point in time where we are is that the Biden-Harris administration also have a 30 by 30 plan where they are looking to conserve 30% of our ocean waters and 30% of our landmass by the year 2030. So knowing that the Ocala National Forest had to have a significant presence of indigenous people, I looked for it, and what I found was a trail, the Timucuan Trail. I think it's 0.9 miles, long in the forest. Now, I know there has to be a lot more in the forest, and so here you have an opportunity to research and find these stories and help bring them to light, and potentially even help get more land in surrounding areas that have a story to tell that might be known by local people, but that land is not yet protected, but it is worthy of protection. So you might be able to bring that to the notice of the Biden-Harris people so that that can be part of the 30 by 30 plan. Next slide, please. Yes. And also nearby you is the Paynes Prairie State Preserve. Frank and I drove on Highway 175 100 times at least from Fort Lauderdale to Atlanta. And we always said we wanted to stop at Paynes Prairie because we learned that the jay, the scrub jay, has habitat there. And we had never seen the scrub jay. We have seen obviously we've seen blue jays, and we even saw Stella's jay in Olympic National Park, but we have yet to see the scrub jay. So what a wonderful opportunity you have in sharing the natural resources, the natural attributes of the Paynes Prairie area to people who might be new to conservation, and show them what there is to conserve, and put that in the context of your conservation message and the conservation message for the entire nation and world. Next one, please. Yes, the Kennedy Space Center. That is Cape Canaveral, as you might know, is a unit of the National Park System, and the Kennedy Space Center is there. And I'm so excited because, you know, the Kathleen Johnson, the Black woman who helped make those calculations for this first space flight, and the other three Black women. Now, Kathleen Johnson actually has a building named for her in the Kennedy Space Center. So you can be sharing the history that people might not even know they have in these national park units, even as you share your conservation message. Next slide, please. Aha. So that is the Castillo de San Marcos National Monument that was built by the Spanish in St. Augustine in the middle of the 17th century to defend Florida and the Atlantic trade route. So that monument interprets 450 years of history. So the Hispanic history is the history of the Spanish people is very, very strong there. You know, I like to remind people that the history of our country is in the national park system at the places where history happened. And if you go to those places or just even take a cursory study of the history of those places, you will find that every race and racial and ethnic group of Americans were instrumental in the development of our country and getting us to where we are now. And so I heartily recommend the national parks and the public land system as a way of engaging with people about the friction that we're now seeing, because so many people have our history so wrong. Next one, please. Next slide.
I'm sorry, Audrey. I want to interrupt real quick. You're disappearing into the Grand Canyon. Wanted to let you know, maybe sitting up a little bit closer so we can see you while you talk.
How's this? Is this better? Is this better?
No, we
can't. I don't mind disappearing in the Grand Canyon, but is this better?
No, I can't see you at all.
Really? Wow. Uh-oh. I don't know. How's that?
No, it's going in and out, unfortunately. Maybe try adjusting your light. It's so strange because it didn't happen earlier.
Yeah, so sorry about that. Is that any better?
It's not, but it's okay. We can still hear. I just wanted to interrupt to see if we could fix it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
No? Okay, next one. Yes. So this is one of my favorite places in the park system, and it's just outside of Jacksonville. It's the Timucuan Ecological, anyway, it's the Timucuan Ecological Reserve and the Kingsley Plantation. And what you're looking at there is an image of a number of tabby cabins, tabby, T-A-B-B-Y, cabins that are at the Kingsley Plantation, as those cabins were actually built by enslaved people and was where they lived. And so when I go there and I put my hand against that wall, it's as though, 150 years just slips away and I'm back in the presence of my ancestors. And I can thank them for all that they did to make America what it is today, that enables me to have the life I can have today and the freedoms I can have. And knowing what they endured fuels my passion to engage with more people in this quest to protect and conserve our environment for the benefit of this and future generations. How's the image?
It looks like the slides are the focus right now, so I think it's okay.
Okay. So let's go on to the next one, please. Aha. This is the Milky Way, taken very recently by my friend astronomer Derek Demeter in Everglades National Park. And of course, among all the treasures that we have in Florida, to my mind, the Everglades is arguably the greatest because it is the focus of the multi-billion-dollar restoration effort. So the Everglades is where Frank and I first got involved with conservation, because after we went around the country and saw the expanse of beauty in the national park system and came back with our eyes as big as stars, wanting so much to help engage others. The Everglades Restoration Project was just getting underway. And so we got very involved in helping inform people of color in South Florida about what the restoration would mean to them. And here's where I feel it's important to share that, for example, in trying to expand the constituency of people supporting the restoration, while mainstream environmental groups such as the Audubon Society talked about the beauty of nature and the importance of protecting the wildlife, we knew that that was not necessarily a message that would resonate in communities of color. So it's very important to tailor your message to the people that you're trying to reach. And in this instance, we talk to people about the pocketbook, the impact that the restoration would have on their pocketbook, because restoring the Everglades was also intended to help secure the water supply for a burgeoning population. So once we got them interested on the pocketbook issue, then we could also talk to them about this natural and spiritual values of helping to protect God's creation. And really, in a very, very short time, we had so many people engaged and wanting to be a part of that the Everglades Coalition gave Frank and me their George Barley Leadership Award. Now, the effort has since slacked off, and this is one of the issues that we find with conservation. To a large extent, people of color are almost perceived as extraneous, as an addition. You come for us when there's an event or when it's necessary. But I'm here to say, people have actually said to me, people of color, you have so many life issues, so many survival issues, paying the rent and the light bill and you know, all of these challenges that you have, you can't afford to be concerned about the environment. And I'm mentioning that tonight in case there's still any residue of that thinking, because that was in the 90s that was said to us. But in this millennium, too, similar things have been said to us. And really, I felt really offended because as a human being, as a citizen of the world, I have the right to enjoy everything and the responsibility to help take care of everything. So if people say to me that, we're so sympathetic to your plight that we know that you can't be a part of the solution, that really is not a very gratifying feeling. And one other vital thing that I have to share from my experience is when people get bit by the conservation bug, and I'm also suggesting that they can get bitten by the conservation bug as a result of seeing the beauty in the national parks, the beauty of nature, and get that respect for nature, there's a feeling of elevation and freedom, a feeling of being connected to something greater than yourself, a feeling of helping protect something greater than yourself. That it's just a kind of freedom that is almost indescribable. And unfortunately, the people who most need that feeling in America don't get to feel it because the conservation sector is so siloed and segmented. It's almost as though, in my experience anyway, it's almost as though, people of color are expected to deal with the issue of environmental justice. And I say that really should be rephrased to say environmental injustice, because we're dealing with the injustice of bearing the burden of pollution while not getting to enjoy so much of the benefits. So I am thinking that this is on this 51st Earth Day anniversary, it's time for us to take a whole new look at where we are and to recognize that every person has the right to enjoy and the responsibility to be part of the solution. And, if we're going to go on the kind of war footing that's required, where every person is going to be expected to make a contribution, then I guess I can stop being concerned about that, because we will be so united. It will be an all hands on deck moment. Next, is there another slide? Yes. Okay, yes. So as Sadie mentioned earlier, as part of the Next 100 coalition, Frank and I succeeded in persuading President Obama to issue a presidential memorandum on diversity in the national parks and the public land system, providing guidance to public land managers to engage, more Americans of color, and also to get more places that tell the stories of the contributions of Americans of color into the national park system. I'm really very proud of that. And that also gives us a basis to work from at this point. Next slide, please. Thank you. So after years of hearing from conservation leaders about how difficult it is to engage people of color in conservation and how hard it is to find people, Frank and I decided to call up 50 of our closest friends who are environmental leaders in climate and energy and adaptation. And, we actually have a mountaineer. We formed a speakers bureau called the Diverse Environmental Leaders Speakers Bureau, DEL for short, Diverse Environmental Leaders. And it includes a mountaineer who has climbed the highest peak on 4 continents and is striving to complete the 7 summits. A man who sailed solo around the globe in his mid-50s just to show that it could be done. People of all races and ethnic groups, a Native young American young woman who reaches out to people and shares her culture through music. So many people who are so eager. I mean, multiple academics, ecologists, birders, ornithologists, hikers, people who are very, very engaged with the natural world and who want to be part of the solution, because we wanted to put an end to that idea that we were not interested or that people could not be found. So just to say a little more about how you can be more inclusive in your outreach, I am certain that by now, every entity or organization that is focused on conservation has some diversity among its ranks. And so I'm thinking that when you're looking to reach out and engage more people of color, please engage your staff and partners of color in helping you craft the message so that it is aligned with our priorities and the things that we care about. Yes, we all care about climate, environment, history, but if you're striving to reach people in your particular area, find out the things that are on their radar in that area and then target your message, couch your message so that it is relevant to them. One thing about advocacy, I think I must be on at least, a 50 conservation list because every day I get a slew of information about what's up, what uh, activist actions need to be taken. Just from the color of change, recently I got a petition about a university in Florida that actually has um, a vitally significant, ecologically significant piece of land in Tampa that they're looking for proposals to get developed. And I was really shocked by that because it just seems to me that an institution of higher learning would be striving to promote and protect a place like that. So I actually did immediately send in a petition about that and send in the petition about that and also share it on Facebook. Just this week also, I got a petition about further south in Homestead, where planners are investigating the feasibility of developing more housing around Homestead Air Force Base. In the year, I think it was 1998 or something like that, we actually helped organize people from surrounding communities of Liberty City, Little Haiti, Little Havana, to talk to the U.S. Army that was proposing at the time to expand the Air Force Base into an international airport. And the people were so dismayed and upset at the thought of having an international airport sited between two national parks that they turned out en masse and persuaded the US Air Force against that idea. So to see an idea now resurfacing to put that kind of density of housing was really very disappointing. So there is so much opportunity and so much need for us as citizens to be talking to our elected officials at the city level, at the state level, at the national level. People need to be informed, they need to be invited, they need to be engaged with the conservation message, they need to feel it to understand why it's important. And I encourage you on this 51st Earth Day, when we're focused on restoring our Earth, to recognize we cannot afford to leave any person behind. We need to be reaching out to the influencers in our community who can take the message of conservation, show them what you have to offer, and help them help you craft the message that they can take to the wider world. Because at this point, Earth Day 2021, it's all hands on deck. That's what we need if we're going to maintain a quality of the environment that can sustain human life for the benefit of this and future generations. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you tonight.
Thank you, Audrey. I am feeling so inspired and ready to get out and explore.
Thank you, Sadie.
We're going to take some time. Oops, I need to start my video. There I go. We're going to take some time to have Audrey answer some questions. But before we get to that, we're going to give her a quick break. And I'm going to introduce our Q&A moderator for tonight and give her a chance to talk a little bit about her work in conservation. Lillian Dinkins is a Conservation Programs Fellow at Conservation Florida. Lillian is a recent graduate of Tuskegee University, where she majored in environmental, natural resources, and plant sciences with a focus in forestry and wildlife. We are beyond delighted to have her with us here tonight and are looking forward to learning more about her work at Conservation Florida. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Lillian.
Hello, thank you all so much for having me tonight. Like Sadie said, my name is Lillian Dinkins. I'm really excited to be here. I'm just going to tell you all a little bit about my work and a little bit about Conservation Florida. Okay, so once again, my name is Lillian Dinkins. I work for Conservation Florida. Just to give you all an introduction about Conservation Florida, I'll talk to you a little bit about our team, what we do, where we work, our programs, and a special place that we call Dee Ranch Reserve. So Conservation Florida is an accredited land trust. That just means that we're a nonprofit organization actively working to conserve land. We do this by acquiring land or conservation easements, stewardship or managing land or conservation easements. And us being accredited just means that you can really trust us and we're an effective organization that will help conserve land forever. So this is just a picture of our wonderful staff that we have here at Conservation Florida. We all wear a lot of different hats, and although we are a small organization, we get a lot done. And this is our awesome, awesome board who we have, who live all over different parts of Florida, who all have the same idea and love conservation in Florida. So what do we protect? Our mission is to save Florida's natural and agricultural lands for future generations. Our conservation projects support Florida's native plants, wildlife, freshwater, conservation corridors, family farms and ranches, and nature-based recreation. So just to put that into perspective, we help save different forest areas, springs, rivers, and watersheds, places where you enjoy nature, healthy habitats, wildlife, and hope for our future generations. So where do we work? Conservation Florida was founded in 1999, and since then has led the way in strategic and evidence-based land protection and has saved over 25,000 areas of critical habitat through acquisition, facilitation, and incubation of conservation projects. So one really cool thing about Conservation Florida, we work all over Florida, from the Everglades all the way to Pensacola, and we focus on different conservation areas and the corridors that connect. So say for instance, if I'm doing work in Orlando, we focus in the Orlando region, but also the corridors that will lead all the way to Ocala. And thankfully, we aren't the only conservation group in Florida. So we value and respect the work of other local and regional land trusts that focus on different areas. So we do our best to work with these areas in different partnerships over Florida. Other places we have case by case areas that we work, and we also have our priority counties that we work in as well. So we have 3 regions with really high priorities: the Northwest of Florida, Central Florida, where I'm located, and the Northern Everglades. And these parts have all different, very unique landmass, biodiversity, and whenever you go to Florida, you never know what you'll see in these different areas, which is really nice that we get to work all over. So from the Everglades to the Panhandles, our landscape projects are saving some of the most rarest ecosystems, plants, and animals in the world. We save land by developing conservation strategies, exploring funding options, and purchasing or accepting donations of land and conservation easements. So that's how we're able to save all of this beautiful land that you're able to see in these pictures. On the left, you see the Everglades headwaters, some parts in Central Florida in the middle, and also the Northwest Florida on the right-hand side. So at the end of the day, we protect biodiversity in Florida, but that's not all we do, because you can't do conservation without people. I froze.
We can still see you, Lillian. Can you see and hear us?
No, I can't. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay, can you all see the screen? It froze on my end.
We can see protecting biodiversity for Florida.
Oh, okay. Well, my computer froze, but I'll keep on going. Give me 1 second. Okay, but yes, as I said, although conservation is nice, you still have to connect it to people. So we do a lot of other things here at Conservation as well. Our other services include providing expertise on guiding landowners through land protection. This process allows us to connect with people and nature. We also do advocacy, which is where we're able to go and speak with different lawmakers about the importance of conservation and lawmaking in Florida. Education and outreach, which is one of my favorite things, which was really hard to do, especially with the pandemic, but we found different ways to safely connect with people. We started our new trivia games that we do monthly. Shameless plug, we have a trivia game on next week, Thursday, which is reptile related. We also do our Bio Blitz when we have one coming up May 22nd at our beloved D Ranch Preserve. And we also just love sharing the joy for nature with the community. So we're a trusted community partner, and we just share the experiences that we have with others to make them love nature as well. So our vision on a large scale is we're just 100% committed to conservation in the state of Florida, for nature, for people, forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian. Thank you so much for the work you do on behalf of Florida. We're going to go ahead and transition to the Q&A. So Lillian, if you want to stop sharing. All right, thank you, everyone. While we troubleshoot this a little bit. Audrey, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Can you see me?
Let's see.
Can you see me?
We still can't see you, unfortunately.
Weird.
But we can hear you just fine.
Oh, good. Okay.
While we're troubleshooting here, I know you talked about this a little bit already, but would you mind talking a little bit more about things we can do to make the outdoors or national parks more inclusive and welcoming?
Oh, that's my favorite thing. So, depending upon what your program is, I am presuming, I know that you have the butterfly program, right? So, at the museum, correct? So I am thinking you can extrapolate the butterfly program, a bird watching program, a hiking program, whatever the programs are you have that take people outdoors, strive to take people to some of the most scenic places, and those tend to be in areas of the national parks and forests, right? So in the national parks, for example, you get to see not just, are you hearing me? Are you able to hear me? Because I'm seeing something happening on my screen too.
Yeah, I'm just trying to stop Lillian's screen sharing, but we can hear you just fine. Yes.
Whenever I'm looking to take people out, I always, especially if it's for the first time, I always make certain the place I'm taking them to is very scenic. It is that expanse of scenery, of untouched nature, that tends to have an impact on the soul. You get that wow response. I had that wow response for the first time in Acadia National Park, and I tell people, standing on the top of Cadillac Mountain, looking out at that expanse of untouched nature, I felt that I fell in love with myself. And I've never lost that love, and it's been since 1995. So, you know, when you can see yourself as part of creation, evolution, as part of the natural world, as part of the scheme of things, you orient yourself in a frame where you no longer feel competitive with other people. You just know that it's kind of like all for one and one for all. Now, that might be an extreme case. Maybe I was predisposed to that, but I have found that taking people from even some of the most extreme violent neighborhoods in Miami, including, for example, Liberty City, to Everglades National Park, persuading them to walk on the Anhinga Trail, when they see all the birds standing in perfect motion, the birds standing beside alligators, the fish gently swimming. One young man actually said, "Why? How come they don't look so scared? They're not darting about." And then older woman said, "Because nobody's chasing them." And that's the feeling that people get from, national parks. Nobody's chasing you. Things here are just the same as they have been for countless thousands of years. And that's a feeling you can't really get in the city. You might be able to get it in a neighborhood park or preserve, but we emphasize the benefits of taking people to the national parks because they get not only that incredible beauty and that impact on the soul, but they also get to learn the history of the country, the history of what happened there. Because no place gets into the national park system or the forest system or the wildlife refuge system without tremendous review and congressional acquiescence.
Wonderful. Thank you, Audrey. We're still troubleshooting getting Lillian back on board, but we'll keep rolling with the questions while we're working on that. Can you expand on the work that you've done in the Everglades?
Yes. Well, the work that we did in the Everglades was from 1997 through 2003. And that was really to engage, to get information into communities of color in Little Haiti, in Little Havana, in Liberty City, in Overtown, in those places that the conservation message does not necessarily reach. And so we sent out information in the Black newspapers and the Hispanic newspapers. We were on Black Radio 99.1, 105.1. We use the media that people of color listen to and read, the media that's particularly targeted to those communities, to play stories about the restoration. And also then we'd arrange excursions where we take them into the park so they could see, so that they could have that walk on the Anhinga Trail and know what there is to protect and preserve, And so that was the work that we did then. And I continue to speak about the Everglades. For example, just this week, I think the Greater Everglades Greater Everglades Ecosystem Restoration scientists are having their Zoom convention as well. And I was able to deliver a message to them, really encouraging greater inclusion. I talked about the fact that in conservation, so much seems to be the unbearable whiteness of being where you don't see proportionate representation of people of color. And that is something that needs to change.
Wonderful, thank you. And it looks like Lillian, you're back, hooray.
Yes, sorry about that.
No, thank you. And thank you to everyone for your patience as we adjust to the trials of technology. Lillian, are you able to see the questions?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, you're welcome to proceed.
Okay. So Audrey, someone said your presentation was very inspiring. They are a local chapter of Florida Native Plant Society. Most of their active members are white or middle-aged or older. Participation in their meetings and field trips is open to the public at no charge, but yet their membership overall isn't very diversified. So do you have any suggestions on how to diversify their membership? And with their experience, it's the same with the local chapters that are around them as well.
So yes, I would say meet people where they are. In your plant society, I bet there are a lot of people in that area that are interested in plants, right? They probably don't know that you exist. So if I were you, I would find out what is the media that's dedicated to the diverse population in that area. Is there a newspaper? Is there a community organization that you can go and speak to and invite them to what you're doing and, share with them what you're doing? And, it's very important to extend the invitation. And it's very important to be open and to know that you don't know everything. So be open to the questions that people will ask you, but make it clear that you are interested in sharing with people the benefits of what you are experiencing. Emphasize the benefits. What is the benefit of getting involved with you? Okay. And when people tell you they have this thing that they're interested in, how might you show interest and reciprocate and support what they're doing and what's important to them? It can't be a one-sided thing. Okay. You have to make the overture, be interested, engage with the people, and give the invitation.
Yes,
And
that
of
was
course, make them feel welcome when they come, And
Mhm.
I have to tell you this quickly. So I was at a conference not too long ago, and a lady, it was a conference, racially diverse people. And a lady, a Black woman came in and she said, I'm so happy to be here and among you because I just came from a conference that was predominantly white. And she said, not one person spoke to me. And that was pretty surprising. And a while later, I had an opportunity to speak with my white friend who was at that conference. And I told her what the young woman had said. And she said, well, people go to conferences and we've been going to these conferences for years. And so if we see somebody new, wouldn't that look like we're singling them out if we go talk to her? I'm like, what kind of baloney is that? What kind of thinking is that? If I have a party at my house and somebody comes that I don't know, that is the person I'm going to spend the most time with, introducing them around, showing them, making them feel welcome. So please, that idea of not wanting to talk to people because you don't want to single them out, let's get real. This is not the time. It's an all hands on deck moment.
Those are great, great points. Yes. So the next question you have is, what agency should a citizen start with if they want to get involved with conservation?
I would say, the Land and Water Conservation Fund is active all over the country, right? And in your case, the organization that you're working with right there in Florida might be, a stepping stone. Yes. So because the conservation that work that you're doing is something that I believe, you have room for other people to join and to become advocates for, right? But I definitely recommend the Trust for Public Land, the National Parks Conservation Association, the Sierra Club, the Audubon Society, local chapters of those organizations, um, government agencies. My husband Frank says everything that happens in your community starts with the local zoning and planning and zoning board. There's so much development that people don't want and would object to, but they don't go to the zoning and planning meetings, and so by the time they hear about the proposed development, it's already through the zoning and it's already at the city level and it's already at the county level, etc. So I would definitely say the local organizations are the place to start.
And I'll also add to that as well. So with the Land Trust Alliance, there is different land trusts in every single state. So if you Google it,
Yeah.
they even have a map where it'll show you where the different land trusts are. There are a lot of conservation organizations out there. So just finding your fit.
Excellent.
So the next question starts with the statement. I'm very impressed by all you've done. You've had a lot of huge accomplishments completed and a lot to be proud of. So what's next for you? What's your next big vision and as you continue your work?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative of that. You know what? I am so very excited by the Biden-Harris administration and the fact that they're tackling climate change head on. The president said today it is a moral imperative. I'm excited that we have Deb Haaland, the Native American woman and indigenous person who traces our history back 35 generations as the head of the Department of Interior. I can't wait to see who's going to be chosen to head up the National Park Service. But I'm interested in contributing at that level, just advisory, because I feel to a degree that I have the institutional memory of conservation, over such a long time. I'm talking to a lot of people who weren't even born in 1995 when we started, so I'm really very interested in giving that overview of where we have come from and where I see we can go. And to my mind, the sky's the limit, and it needs to be the sky's the limit. We need to break down every barrier. We need to train every resource and every bit of energy that we have on combating the climate situation, because really, unless we do that, it's going to be a very, very sad world.
Yeah. So the next question is, what park or outdoor space have you not visited yet? And is it on the top of your list?
Mesa Verde, Mesa Verde. I so want to go to Mesa Verde, and I have not been there yet, but it's on my list. And also Dinosaur National Monument in Utah, because Mesa Verde, of course, is the it's a site where indigenous people lived for millennia, and it's very well preserved. And Dinosaur National Monument in Utah, you can actually go and dig for dinosaur remains. So I want to go there and do that with my grandchildren.
We just had a question come in that we're about to drop in the chat, but while I'm sending it Lillian's way, Lillian, I was wondering if you would tell us a little bit about what your goals are in conservation.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. So actually my next step is going back to school. I will be attending University of Florida. I will be getting my PhD, so I'm really excited in that. And I'm actually really new to the conservation world, but I'm really excited because I feel like there's so much to do within conservation. And that was another reason I decided to stay in Florida, because I've fallen in love with Florida, the work that I do. And I really think that there's just so much more to do in Florida conservation wise. And I'm really excited to see where it takes me. And actually we have the next question. It says, how do you get young people to get opportunities for internships and fellowships like Lillian?
You know, there's an organization that's also part of our speakers group. It's called Breeding Youth Foundation in Atlanta. I heartily recommend them. I think the foundation has been active now for about 12 years or so. And they have placed, at least hundreds of students in parks and forests and wildlife refuges across the country. So I heartily recommend Breeding Youth Foundation as a stepping stone. They've got the goods.
I can attest to that. I worked for the Greening Youth Foundation.
Did you?
My junior year, I did. I went to NOAA in Seattle. So it's a great organization. Even the fellowship that I have right now, it's called the Scholars for Conservation Fellowship Program. My mentor at North Carolina State, she started this program in ties with the Land Trust Alliance to get graduating seniors to just get involved with conservation. So I was able to go to the Land Trust Alliance conference in Raleigh, North Carolina. And from there, they picked one fellow, which was myself. And I've been able to be here at Conservation Florida for 1 year. And it's been a great experience. Like I said, I really never saw myself in conservation. So there are a lot of different internships, even with Fish and Wildlife, the Park Service, like you said, Greening Youth as well.
So have you been Instagramming from where you are when you're outdoors? Are you sharing with your friends?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I find that is so key to raise an awareness of what's out there,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So have another question, and it's for the both of us, but you can go first, Audrey. What is an awe-inspiring moment you've had in nature? A unique animal you've seen or special experience that really made you fall in love with the outdoors?
Oh, that was when in September 1995, I remember it as if it was today, when Frank and I drove into Bar Harbor in Maine and drove into Acadia National Park. Wow. I can't even describe it. The Cadillac Mountain is a rock big rock jutting out of the forest. The forest is on the flanks of the mountain. Looks like a hula skirt, right? And you're driving up the mountain, and it's winding up, and then the clouds are below you, and you're still going up. And then when we got to the top of the mountain, we were deposited in an area of such ethereal beauty. I thought we had left planet Earth, actually. I didn't think this would still be, because it didn't look like any Earth that I'd ever seen before, And I looked around at all the wild, untouched nature, at the sun glinting on the Atlantic Ocean and turning it into gold, at the the birds fishing and cawing and calling, and just the beauty of nature all around. And I swear, I really fell in love with myself at that moment, because I thought, the same entity that created all of that beauty created me. And as all of that is beautiful and perfect, I must be beautiful and perfect too. And it's been 25 years and I still feel beautiful and perfect. And here's the thing, I see everyone and everything else as beautiful and perfect too. So I literally walk around seeing nothing but beauty. It's a wonderful way to live.
It is. It is. I will also say my favorite, I think it was my very first internship. I took a leap of faith and I took an internship with the Bureau of Land Management in Miles City, Montana. So that was an experience I've never known, especially a woman of color, to go to Montana. And it was something that I could never experience, especially from me coming all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, and going there. It was just beautiful, from the plane ride there to seeing the buttes to seeing different animals. It was just a great experience. I did a lot of botany work there, so I was able to see a lot of different plants. And I think my most memorable moment was the second I saw a mustard seed actually in person. And I was just like, wow, like seeing something that small and knowing that I had such small faith to actually go to Montana and just see this different area. I think that's when I really fell in love with the outdoors all over again.
Wow, fantastic. I love that story.
I'm checking for any other questions.
While you're looking, I dropped one in there for you, Lillian. I just want to tell the audience, keep them coming. We've just got a few minutes left, so get those questions in the chat while you can.
Okay, this one says, listening from Dallas, Texas, this has been a very informative presentation. Ms. Peterson mentioned a gathering of professionals like mountaineers, but I missed the name of the group and their function. So it was a group of people that you named,
Yes.
a group of mountaineers.
Right. It's the Diverse Environmental Leaders Speakers Bureau. Yes. Frank and I formed that in 2014. Diverse Environmental Leaders Speakers Bureau. So if you Google that, you'll find us.
Okay, this is another question. Was there any place that you visited that you didn't feel safe?
You know, in 1995, when we were first going around the country, we were in Idaho, and that was the time when the O.J. Simpson trial was going on, and there was a lot of talk about militia being in Idaho. And we pulled up to this very serene spot on the river to camp for the night. And suddenly it was like the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Everything felt wrong. And Frank agreed, and he said, we're out of here. My mama didn't raise no fool. And you know what? It could have been a perfectly wonderful experience, but I had not had that feeling before. I was not comfortable, so we did not stay. But in none of the 185 units of the National Park System, or scores of forests and wildlife refuges that we have visited, from the US Virgin Islands to Alaska, in no place have we ever had any hint of racism or being met with any unpleasantness. But I do know that in the present situation, there are people, I know that there was a webinar earlier this week, a town hall actually, dealing with how to help assure the safety of people of color in the great outdoors. And so, our white brothers and sisters will be very instrumental in helping do that, because when the conversation comes up about who belongs and who does not belong, this is where people have to step in and say, that's baloney. All Americans, everybody belongs.
Yep, that's absolutely right. We belong any and everywhere.
Exactly.
So the next question says, which park is a must-see for all American and people of Earth?
Okay, so The Grand Canyon is the national park that President Teddy Roosevelt said, do nothing to mar its grandeur. Keep it as the one great sight that every American should see. And I agree, I love the Grand Canyon. However, my all-time favorite park is the Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. You have to see that place to believe it. You're just driving along on the road. I forget the name of the highway now, but it connects Yellowstone and the Grand Teton. So, you get a 2-for-1. So you're just driving along on the Rockefeller Parkway. You're just driving along on the parkway, and suddenly you turn a corner, and this huge wall of mountains up to the sky leap up out of nowhere, and there's a river running by there at the bottom, and then there are fields of lupine, purple and red, and so much beauty in the between the river and the road. They call those mountains the Oh My God mountains, because they say that when people see them, that's the only thing you could say. Oh my God. You just can't believe anything so beautiful exists. So that's my favorite part that I think everybody should see. And see Yellowstone while you're at it.
I'm jealous. I have not been to any of those places yet, but
But you will.
it's
You
on my
will.
list. Yes. So the next question says, what's a great first beginner camp trip to a state park?
To a state park in Florida?
I guess just in general.
Yes. Well, pick a state park that you like and, check it out online. Make sure that it has what you want, what you're looking for. Are you looking for swimming? Are you looking for, are you looking for water? Are you looking for, horseback riding? Are you looking for trail hiking? What are you looking for? Decide what you're looking for, and then pick a park. Look online for a park a state park in your area that offers those things, is what I would say.
Okay, and the next question says, Audrey, do you feel that there are more Black and Brown people now visiting natural parks and that your decade of work is now bearing fruit?
Absolutely. I am so gratified because I can tell you, there's not a week that passes by, and in my Facebook feed, I don't get, hit up by somebody from a new group or see a new group. There are people who are hiking, camping, biking. People are just enjoying the outdoors in the ways that appeal to them. And then, some of those leaders that have come up from the 90s and up till now have large organizations that are taking people out, Outdoor Afro, Teresa Baker in California, lots and lots. Well, Outdoor Afro has chapters all across the country now. So I'm so excited by that. Yes, it's a huge difference between now and when we started in 1995. And that's as it should be. And I'm really hopeful that in 2021, there's going to be just an explosion of leave no trace behind interaction. I really feel like conservation organizations need to be increasing their message of, when you are out, here's a conservation issue that you need to be aware of, or, it shouldn't just be like going out and people complaining about how crowded places are. It should be going out with a mission to engage with the larger, with the purity of nature, to get some headspace, learn some history, be part of the country that you're part of.
Okay, so we have two more questions. The first one says, thank you, Audrey. Are there any suggestions on how we can have anti-racism workshops, seminars within the conservation and environmental spaces / communities? I live in Gainesville, Florida, and it's needed. Peace and love.
Peace and love to you. And you know what? That is the kind of thing we offer that at the Diverse Environmental Leaders Speakers Bureau. There are people who specialize in offering those services. And that's why we formed the Bureau, to offer a one-stop shop, so that whatever service people are looking for in conservation, they could find it there. And our chief person for that is Professor Dr. Carolyn Finney, who she wrote the book Black Places, White Spaces. So check her out. She's very, very profound and very effective.
All right, and this is our last question of the evening. It says, it sounds like there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful. For the both of you, what gives you the most hope for a better future for our Earth?
Well, today, hearing the climate crisis described or mobilizing to counteract and combat the climate crisis, hearing that described as tantamount to the effort of putting us on a war footing, that's the most hopeful thing for me, because I want it to be such that when I go into my supermarket and I'm talking to people, because I talk to people everywhere I go, that when I talk to people and I'm talking about climate, that people shouldn't give me a blank stare, that they should know what I'm talking about and be able to tell me what they're doing in service to climate adaptation. I'm really looking forward to that, when everybody knows and everybody feels that they have a role to play.
And I would definitely say the awareness. There's been a lot more awareness now than ever before.
Yes.
And I've run into so many younger students like myself who are now interested in, even if it's not specifically conservation, just different environmental aspects.
Yes.
So I believe that this is a great starting point and continuation for the rest of our Earth and world.
I agree.
Well, I want to thank you both so much. Thank you, Lillian, for doing a wonderful job fielding our Q&A and being wonderfully adaptive with the technology challenges. And same to you, Audrey. Thank you so much for spending your Earth Day with us and inspiring us to take care of the wonders our Earth has to offer and including everyone in that journey. In the audience, before you go, please consider taking our short survey about the event. We're dropping the link in the chat. We'd love to get your feedback on tonight's event. And I want to thank again, Audrey, our event sponsors, and all of you for joining us tonight. Happy Earth Day, everyone.
Happy Earth Day to you. Happy Earth Day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Lillian. Thank you, Sadie. Thank you, T.